I wanted to look at an Android app called CJack Write. So in this app, the user presses a button and then a lot of stuff is written sort of at random. So it's a demo of some random stuff. And it also, so much is written that we're going to need a scroll view so that the user sort of can see it all. The code for this app can be found at the URL seen. Okay, so the app looks like this. Here's the AVD for the app. And so I have some image view with a picture in it. Nothing happens to the picture. I have a space down here that says where the title and the text is going to go, and just some line to indicate that I'm at the bottom, so that when I'm scrolling, I'll be able to see where the bottom is. And so here the user, me in this case, clicks the button, CJack Write, and he writes this same sentence. That was the title, At the Overlook by Jack Torrance. And then here is this writing the same sentence, sort of creating paragraphs upon paragraphs of the same sentence. It's a scene from The Shining. That's the inspiration. And then finally, here we are at the bottom. But so we've made this region where he's writing scrollable. And that's mainly done in design. So that's what we will show, among other things. So here is the activity underscore main XML. This is the layout. I'm using a constraint layout. Here was the image view with the content description. Here was the button that got pressed. Here is the scrolling. So there is a view that allows you to scroll. So here's the beginning, and it is a container. So here is ScrollView, and then there is a close ScrollView. And this sort of gives automatically the scrolling. So it's possible to have scrolling events, but the scrolling itself just sort of happens. And all I wanted was the scrolling. So I needed the scroll view, but I'll have no code in the KT in the Kotlin for the scrolling. It just sort of happens because I have a scroll view. So the scroll view, it gets constrained because it is within the constraint layout, and then things within it will be treated differently because they're now in this separate container. So this being in the constraint layout has to be constrained. And then I wanted, if you recall, multiple things in there. I had a title, and then I had this text paragraph, and then I had just the lines to show me I was at the bottom. So I had 3 things. Well, it turns out that you're not allowed to have 3 things in a scroll view. You're not allowed to have multiple children, I should say. You can have multiple things, but there can only be one child. And then that child can have children. So that's how we'll get multiple things in there. So in the scroll view, I have placed a linear layout. Now you've got to be careful, especially with these widths and heights, that my scroll view had a particular width and height. So it had like explicit numbers typed in there. Whereas my linear layout for the width just says just to be as wide as the parent and wrap the content. And if people will sort of drag things out, so let me show back in the layout, in the design layout, people will just sort of drag, grab, and move things around, and that tends to give things an explicit size. And we wanted the scroll to have some explicit size, but the other items in there we did not want to have explicit sizes. We wanted them to sort of just fill as needed. But if you give them explicit sizes, then they're going to sort of have and keep those sizes. So the scroll had explicit sizes, whereas we put in the scroll view a linear layout because we wanted to have multiple things, and we couldn't have multiple things directly in the scroll view. So we had instead, we put the scroll view into the linear layout, and then we put the things in the linear layout. So the scroll view had one child, which is a requirement. We put in a linear layout with a vertical orientation. So everything, so the linear layout doesn't have to be constrained because it's in the scroll view. The scroll view was constrained because it's in the constraint layout. And the linear layout is just going to sort of take up as much room as it needs, or fill its parent, the scroll view. And it has a vertical orientation. So as you put things into the linear layout, they'll end up one after the other. And then we had three things in there: a text view for the title called TV title, a text view for the text that the Jack is writing, and a text view for the end that just has those dashed lines. So there's the end of the linear layout, and there's the end of the scroll view. Sometimes when you drag something like this, one of these containers, sometimes when you first drag a scroll view, it will put a little slash here just after the 20 dp and sort of make it look like a self-closer. And then, but really, when you're really working with the scroll view, there'll be something in it. And so then you'll need an open and a close. So don't be fooled by what sort of happens when you first drag something out. If the scroll view were sort of closing itself, then there'd be nothing in it to be scrollable. So it wouldn't be of any use to you. So you've really got to work with the open scroll and close scroll to make it a container. But again, sometimes when you drag things out, even though they're containers, they'll put it in as one self-closing tag to begin with. And don't be fooled. No, if it's a container, then there should be an open and a close. Okay. While I'm in the resources area, I have the drawable resource of The Shining. That was that picture that we saw. And we're not coding it in any way. It's just set up in design. Make sure you obey your naming scheme here. So your resources have this fairly strict naming scheme: small letters, underscores, numbers don't start with numbers. You can have a file extension, but when you're writing the resource name, it will not have the extension. Okay, over to main activity. And there won't be much to main activity, a lot of sort of random writing. The actual scrolling that we wanted to show just sort of comes automatically with design if we've handled that correctly. And the careful part is the only one child for the scroll view. That's important. And then that sort of height and width to give the scroll view itself maybe explicit height and width, but not the things within it. Keep them as sort of match parent, wrap content, that sort of thing. Okay, here we go. I'm using random. Those paragraphs were generated somewhat randomly. Random can be confusing in that we're working in Kotlin, and then Kotlin sort of sits on top of Java in most Android situations. And so then you get the confusion if there's a Kotlin and a Java version of something. And Kotlin has a random and Java has a random. And I had sort of taken this program back from when I was writing Android in Java and just sort of brought it over to Kotlin. So I was still using the Java's random. So this code here, where I'm, bringing in the random class and getting, an instance of the random class, I'm using Java's random class. So that's under here, import java.util. The syntax would be different if I were bringing in Kotlin's random. Okay. Connect, make a button, make a TV title, make a TV text. I'm not changing the image. I'm not changing that end text view. So I don't need any of that. The button, I'm going to have a listener listen for it. I'm going to write a title. I'm going to write some text. So here's the click event for writing. I have a sentence that I write over and over again. All work, no play makes Jack a dull boy. I'm setting the title of the TV title, the text view for the title. And then here I'm clearing out maybe any previous text I might have had in TV text. And then I have these nested loops. I have a loop that goes from 1 to 9. So I'm just doing the notation for a range 1 to 9, 1.9, and I is in that range. So I sort of get a counter. I'm not going to explicitly use the counter I, but I'm going to have sort of 9 paragraphs. And then I'm going to, here's where I'm using the random number. So I'm getting a random number sort of roughly between 15 and 20. So getting a random number between 0 and 15 and then adding 5. And then I have an inner loop where J goes over the range 1 to that paragraph size. And I'm appending, not setting the text, but appending the sentence. So I'm adding that sentence, and there's a little space here in the sentence. So I'm adding the sentence over and over again to the TV text within this inner loop. When I'm done an inner loop, I'm giving myself 2 new line characters, 2 \n. And so I'm ending up with a sort of space, not only returning to the next line, but giving myself another new line character. So that gives me this sort of blank space between my paragraphs. And then I start another a loop. So an inner loop makes a paragraph. The outer loop makes 9 in total paragraphs. And then when I'm done, I appended the word "the end," gave myself, a new line. And then there was that dashed line was always there and unchanged. And that's it. That's this paragraph. That's this app, mainly to show you the scroll view. And the scroll view happened mostly or almost exclusively in design. There are methods, but we're not using them here. It just scrolls because it scrolls. That's what it does. Thanks.